Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because today we're talking about something a little different from our usual coverage, a genuinely sweet, feel-good story that combines music, astrology, and one of the biggest official platforms in the entire industry. We're talking about Spotify, we're talking about the zodiac sign Cancer, and we're talking about how one specific song from Jimin ended up right at the center of it all. Stick around, because this is one of those stories that's just genuinely nice to talk about, and by the end of this video you'll understand exactly why this particular pairing makes so much sense. Let's get into it. So let's start with the basics, because context always helps a story like this land properly. Spotify has an official editorial account, Spotify News, that regularly puts out these fun, data-driven, astrology-themed breakdowns tied to the current zodiac season. If you've been on social media at all over the past few years, you've probably seen these kinds of graphics before. A specific zodiac sign gets paired with a specific song, based on listening data and input from professional astrologers who help translate the astrological themes of that season into a musical pick that fits the mood. And during Cancer season this year, in the United States specifically, Spotify's data pointed to one very specific track, Who by Jimin. Out of every song streaming on the platform, out of every artist, every genre, every possible pick, Who ended up being named the top song for Cancer listeners across the country. That's honestly a pretty remarkable thing to sit with for a second. We're not talking about a niche astrology account with a small following putting this together, we're talking about Spotify's own official editorial team, working alongside a professional astrologer, publicly naming one specific song as the definitive pick for an entire zodiac sign, across the whole of the United States. Now, if you're not familiar with how these zodiac and music pairings usually get put together, it's worth understanding a little bit about the process, because it's genuinely more thoughtful than people might assume at first glance. These aren't just random matchups slapped together for engagement. Spotify typically works with actual professional astrologers who study the specific themes, moods, and emotional undercurrents associated with each zodiac season, and then that astrological insight gets paired against real listening data, meaning the songs that are actually resonating most strongly with self-identified fans of each sign during that specific window of time. So when a song gets named the top pick for a sign, it's really the intersection of two different things: genuine listening behavior from real people, and a thoughtful astrological read on what that season is supposed to represent emotionally. For this particular Cancer season pairing, the astrologer attached to the campaign was Lisa Stardust, a well-known name in the astrology space who frequently partners with major platforms on these kinds of culturally resonant campaigns. Her accompanying commentary framed the pick in a really specific, evocative way. She described Cancer season as being fundamentally about sentimentality and comfort, and she talked about how the arrival of summer brings with it a chance to heal the past through nostalgic listening. She also touched on Mercury retrograde happening during this window, framing it as a period that allows people to reflect and look back on their memories with open arms. Take a second to actually sit with that description, because I think it's genuinely worth appreciating how specific and thoughtful that framing is. Cancer, as a sign, is traditionally associated with deep emotional sensitivity, a strong connection to home and comfort, and a tendency to feel things intensely, sometimes including old memories resurfacing unexpectedly. The idea that this particular season would call for music that leans into sentimentality, nostalgia, and emotional reflection makes a lot of intuitive sense if you know anything about how Cancer season gets talked about in astrology circles more broadly. And that's exactly where Who comes into the picture, because if you've listened to the song, you already know it fits that emotional register incredibly well. Without getting into a full track-by-track lyrical breakdown, the song carries a genuinely introspective, searching quality to it, the kind of track that invites you to sit with your own feelings rather than just move past them. It's not an aggressive, high-energy anthem. It's something quieter, more contemplative, the kind of song that works when you're processing something emotionally rather than trying to escape from it. That's precisely the mood Lisa Stardust's commentary was describing when she talked about Cancer season being defined by sentimentality and the comfort of looking back through nostalgic listening. Let's also talk a little bit about the song's home within Jimin's broader body of work, because context here matters. Who comes from his project Muse, which has been received as one of the more emotionally rich, artistically layered releases of his solo career. Fans and critics alike have pointed to Muse as a project that leans heavily into introspection, vulnerability, and a kind of quiet emotional honesty that distinguishes it from more upbeat, performance-driven material. Given that who specifically sits within that emotional landscape, it's honestly not surprising that it ended up being the track that resonated so strongly with an entire zodiac sign known for exactly those same qualities: emotional depth, sentimentality, and a comfort with sitting inside your own feelings rather than rushing past them. Now, let's take a moment to appreciate just how significant it is for a song to earn this kind of specific, official recognition from a platform as massive as Spotify. We're talking about one of the largest music streaming services in the entire world, a platform used by hundreds of millions of people across nearly every country on Earth. When Spotify's own editorial account puts together a piece of content naming a specific song as the definitive pick for an entire zodiac sign across an entire country, that's not a small, throwaway moment. That's the platform actively spotlighting a specific track, in front of its enormous audience, as something that captures a very particular emotional and cultural mood. And it's worth thinking about the mechanics of how a pick like this actually gets made in the first place. Remember, this isn't just astrological vibes matched to a song at random. Spotify has access to an almost unimaginable amount of real listening data, down to which songs people are streaming, how often, during which windows of time, and how those patterns cluster around self-identified zodiac signs when users share that information as part of their profile or engagement with Spotify's own zodiac-themed features. So for who to come out on top for Cancer listeners specifically, that means a genuinely significant number of real people, who identify as Cancer, are turning to that specific song during this specific season, at a rate high enough to outpace every other track being streamed across the entire platform. That's a pretty remarkable data point on its own, entirely separate from the astrological framing layered on top of it. Let's also talk about why moments like this tend to resonate so strongly with fans when they see them shared online. There's something genuinely validating about seeing a piece of music you already love get externally recognized in a completely unexpected context. Fans who already had a personal connection to who maybe already associated the song with specific memories, specific emotions, specific moments of reflection in their own lives, suddenly get to see that personal connection reflected back at them through an entirely separate lens, the lens of astrology, presented by one of the biggest platforms in the industry. It's the kind of moment that makes a song feel like it's speaking to something bigger than just individual taste, like it's tapping into something more universal about how a specific group of people experience emotion during a specific time of year. And for fans who maybe hadn't given who as much individual attention before, seeing it framed this way, as the definitive emotional anthem for an entire zodiac season, tends to send them back to the song with fresh ears, listening for exactly the qualities that earned it this recognition in the first place. That's honestly one of the more delightful outcomes of a campaign like this. It doesn't just celebrate existing fans, it actively creates new entry points for people to rediscover a song they might have overlooked the first time around. Let's zoom out a little bit and talk about why these zodiac and music pairing campaigns have become such a consistent, beloved part of how platforms like Spotify engage with their audience in the first place. Astrology, whatever your personal relationship to it, has become a genuinely massive cultural touchpoint over the past several years, especially among younger audiences who engage with it not necessarily as a rigid belief system, but as a fun, flexible framework for understanding mood, personality, and emotional experience. Platforms that lean into that cultural moment thoughtfully, rather than superficially, tend to create content that people genuinely want to engage with and share, because it feels personal and specific rather than generic. Think about the difference between a generic songs for summer playlist and a specifically curated pick tied to your exact zodiac sign, backed by real data and framed through genuine astrological insight. One of those feels like marketing. The other feels like something made specifically with you in mind. That distinction is honestly a huge part of why campaigns like this consistently go viral and get shared across social media platforms well beyond Spotify's own official channels. It's also worth touching on what this kind of recognition means for an artist's broader career and cultural footprint. When a song gets pulled into a cultural conversation this way, tied to astrology, tied to a specific emotional mood, tied to an official campaign from one of the biggest platforms in the industry, it extends that song's relevance well beyond its initial release window. Songs can sometimes get treated as having a defined shelf life, a period of initial attention right around release, followed by a gradual fade as the conversation moves on to whatever comes next. Moments like this Spotify pairing work against that pattern entirely, giving a song an entirely new reason to circulate, get discussed, and get rediscovered by both existing fans and completely new listeners, long after its initial release cycle. Let's also spend a little time appreciating the specific astrological framing itself. because I think it says something genuinely thoughtful about how who was interpreted here. The commentary specifically called out sentimentality and comfort as the dominant emotional register of Cancer season, and specifically noted that summer brings with it a chance to heal the past through nostalgic listening. That's a pretty specific, intentional read, not a vague, one-size-fits-all astrology blub. It suggests real thought went into matching the emotional tone of the song against the emotional tone of the season, rather than just picking whatever happened to be trending that week and retrofitting an astrological explanation onto it after the fact. And when you think about the broader emotional arc of Muse as a project, this pairing genuinely tracks. An album built around introspection, emotional vulnerability, and quiet reflection lines up remarkably well with a Zodiac season that's specifically associated with sentimentality, memory, and the comfort of looking back at your own emotional history. It's not a stretch to say that who earning this recognition feels less like a coincidence and more like a natural convergence between the emotional identity of the song itself and the emotional identity of the season it ended up representing. Let's also talk a little bit about the broader reaction from fans once this graphic started circulating. Based on what's been shared and reposted across various fan accounts, the reaction has been overwhelmingly warm and enthusiastic. There's something genuinely wholesome about this particular story compared to a lot of the other conversations that tend to dominate entertainment news cycles. This isn't about controversy, this isn't about drama, this isn't even really about a competitive trending metric the way some other viral moments tend to be framed. It's simply about a song being recognized, through real data and real astrological insight, as something that speaks meaningfully to an entire group of people during a specific, emotionally significant time of year. That's a genuinely nice thing to see circulating, and it's understandable why fans have responded to it with so much warmth. It's also worth noting how these kinds of stories tend to have a longer shelf life within fan communities compared to some other types of viral moments. A controversy or a piece of drama tends to burn hot and fade relatively quickly. A story like this, a song being recognized as the defining emotional anchor for an entire zodiac sign, tends to get referenced again and again, especially every time Cancer season rolls around in future years, or whenever fans want to point to a moment where an official platform validated something they already deeply believed about the emotional power of this specific track. Let's also touch on what this might mean going forward, both for how Who continues to circulate and for how fans might engage with future Zodiac-themed campaigns tied to Jimin's music more broadly. Once a song earns this kind of specific, official recognition, it tends to become a reference point that gets revisited. Expect to see this particular Spotify graphic reshared again during future Cancer seasons. Expect to see fans continuing to describe Who using language borrowed directly from Lisa Stardust's original commentary, sentimentality, comfort, healing through nostalgic listening, and expect this moment to become a small but meaningful part of the song's broader legacy within the fan community. There's also something worth appreciating here about how astrology-driven music content creates a really specific kind of community bonding experience. Fans who identify as Cancer got to see their entire zodiac sign represented by a song they already loved, creating a shared sense of identity around that specific pairing. Fans who don't identify as Cancer still got to enjoy watching the moment unfold, appreciating the thoughtful astrological framing, and celebrating the recognition on behalf of the artist regardless of their own personal zodiac sign. That kind of universal, low-stakes, purely celebratory engagement is honestly a little rare in how entertainment stories typically circulate, and it's part of what makes this particular story so pleasant to cover. Before we wrap up, I want to hear from you. Are you a Cancer, and if so, does Who actually resonate with you the way this pairing suggests it should? And if you're not a Cancer, what song do you think would be the perfect pick for your own zodiac sign, especially from Jimin's broader catalog? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. I read every single one, and I genuinely love to see what everyone's personal picks would be based on their own sign. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update, because between the tour, the brand moments, and now these kinds of sweet cultural crossover stories, there's clearly no shortage of things worth talking about right now. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, take care of yourselves. Bye!